Why do they call it the Beast Coast? Is it like way harder? This is the Free Outside Show, and today we have on Andrew Drummond, who has a number of FKTs, including the Direttissima, out on the East Coast in the White Mountains. Some would say the hardest, most technical part of the East Coast. So we break it down. What is the Direttissima? Well, it's climbing 48 4,000 footers and connecting them the most efficient way possible. And you might say, 4,000 footers? Wow, Jeff, don't you live higher than that? And the answer is yes, I do. But Andrew is going to try to sell us that this is actually a hard thing to do. So we're going to see what he says. And then we're going to decide for ourselves at the end of this. This is the Free Outside Show. This is Andrew Drummond, and we are going to be diving into the Direttissima. This episode and all of them are brought to you by John G, Garage Grown Gear, and CS Coffee. So I hope you enjoy. Today on the Free Outside podcast, we have on the Legend of the White Mountains, Andrew Drummond, somewhat fresh off the Direttissima. And I think the cool thing about this route is it's almost got like the Nolan's 14 vibes, but in like the least forgiving terrain. Would that be a good summation?
Sure, I'll take that. I mean, that's a nice high praise on routes, and you obviously have experience dabbling all over the continent here. So I think someone put it pretty bluntly that it's like the hardest multi-day route in the Northeast for sure.
Yeah, and that probably puts it up there with anything in the world if the Northeast lives up to the hype.
Yeah, it depends who you ask, I guess.
So I guess we have to start with what is the Direttissima? And I think directly the word means like shortest or fastest route between two things, essentially, or to the top, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the term is Italian for the most direct route, which is strange, for something. If you look at the map of what I did, it doesn't look very direct, but you're trying to link up the 48 4,000 footers in New Hampshire and on foot, carrying all your own supplies through hiking it, essentially, with no drops. And sometimes like that might mean a bushwhack. It might mean, or it could be like a longer road section if you think that's going to be the stronger method or work better for you. I look at it like, what is the path of least resistance when you're starting to play with this puzzle, put the pieces together in terms of your pack weight, where you are on the route, what climbs you have ahead of you. And you'll see some slight variation. So it's not a defined route. It's just you're trying to do all 48 unsupported. And before I gave this a go, there were many others that had done it, and they'd done it in most people had done it in a slack pack style where they would get picked up at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. They would resupply, go home, shower, whatever. Maybe it took them 20 days. And then slowly people started to do it unsupported. But back in 2016, when I got on the route, the fastest times were in the 8 days plus. And I was looking for some challenge that wasn't as grand as the Appalachian Trail, but not as simple as some of the routes that I knew about here. So that would be something like the Hut Traverse. And so it really drew me in. And when you start manifesting on these things, these projects, mm-hmm. they're fully consuming.
Yeah, and I've been kind of a fan or a spectator of the culture in the area for a while. I think I first heard or got interested from like Arlette Land doing, I think it was the Direttissima, wasn't it? Back in
she did it right before I did it, maybe a year before, and that's when I heard about it. So that must have been 2015.
Oh, okay, way back
at least. And yeah, she was definitely on a podcast, and as soon as I heard about that, something about it resonated with me instantly.
Mm-hmm. And then, I want to, as we move into moving in the whites, there's been some other really cool people involved in the route from like style and stuff too. Like Bill Tidd has these famous spreadsheets and stuff of like how fast you can move and when it's productive to bushwhack versus run and stuff like that too.
Yeah. So the next Bill Tidd in my 2016 effort joined up with me towards the end. I had no clue who he was, but sure enough, he had already been supporting, him and his daughter had done the 48 supported, and he was like really getting into endurance sport. Like he doesn't come from this background, and he's in his 50s, and here he is just discovering it. And so he's a very data driven person and loves really just getting into the nitty gritty fine details. And
Yeah.
it's cool. It's a neat way, it's not me, but it's a cool way to look at planning and projecting, is what's the most efficient way to do it for, especially for him. And so he's coming up with multipliers and just different indicators on what steepness is the most efficient carrying a pack versus not carrying a pack. And I agree with some of it, and some of it I'm just, there's like these intangibles that you can't put on paper, you can't put into a spreadsheet. So I looked at it and his route, and it just was not very Direttissima. In fact, he acknowledges that, and he's like, shouldn't even be called that. But but yeah, and you have people like Phil Karsha, who's completed it 5 times the route, which is insane, and he's done a yo-yo of it. So, but as far as like the speed record, the real fast attempts go, it's really just, it's become like Bill Tidd, Will Peterson, and myself, and then there was a supported effort that both Phil Karsha and this other ultra runner, Jason Lance, who's won Vermont 100. Like he did it in just over 5 days as well. Jason did. And Phil and him got separated towards the end, but they went from north to south. And if you're not carrying a heavy pack, it's less important about the direction. But, that's sort of why I say this route went dormant, because there just aren't many vocal attempts, people that are, you don't hear about all the attempts, because if someone's just fast packing it or someone's through hiking it just to do it, that's a trip report that gets buried somewhere on the internet. But when people are going for speed records, then you hear about it.
Yeah. I remember, so after I did the long trail, I still stayed with Mike Tidd, who's Bill's son, and heard about Bill that way. And then I think around then he said he broke the FKT or something in that, like in 2019, maybe.
Yeah. He did 6 days, 6 hours after a series of misfortunes. And that's why I encourage everyone to go read his trip report, because it is pure insanity what he was able to accomplish given all the trouble that he encountered, and his interpretation of the FKT's unsupported guidelines, which, to be fair, were still they were still pretty young.
Yeah, the site had been launched for like 1 year by that point.
Yeah, or at least like things were getting more formalized, and he didn't know if dropping a pack violated the unsupported rules. And then he backtracked quite a bit to when he was second guessing himself. And then he also had one of his he had a bunch of powder liquid nutrition, whatever,
he like
powder
dropped
nutrition
it or something.
And he had his bladder, he lost a cap, and so he had no way to store his fuel, his main fuel source. So he was running on fumes to the end, and he hallucinated. He had some severe hallucinations at the end, but he got it done. And I just saw him the other day. He came by, and we were reminiscing about it. And I was like, didn't you think to restart maybe, when this happened so early in your trip? And his poles got ripped off his bag too on some heinous bushwhack. And no, he's like, no, I was not a thought in my mind said stop. So I'm like, sure, dude. But he went on to set the 48 supported FKT, and I think it's amazing. I mean, he's so dedicated and smart and savvy, and he shows how at any age you can use your experience. You don't have to be a superhuman, which he is a little bit, but he's just very smart.
And I think it shows too that there's almost different styles. Like yours is very intuitive, the terrain quite well, and even having the experience before, versus his is like every move is almost calculated, and both prove successful at the time they were employed. So that's kind of fun too, that these kind of things, there's no set perfect approach to it.
Yeah. As FKTs mature too, it changes the style in which you have to approach it. So as these records get tighter, your risk goes up, and you can't, I was still able to treat mine a bit like a through hike, whereas maybe in a year or two, you're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to get away with that. You're going to have to be a lot more strategic and take a lot more risks in terms of how much food you're carrying with you, and then how much your base weight is, how much you're sleeping, all this stuff. And I'm sort of happy that I didn't have to necessarily discover what those risk levels and what that could do. So
totally. And I want to go dive into a term that I heard you mention, and it's called like feathering a route, and how that plays into it, because I mean, going for the AT here in a week or so, that's going to be something of even more importance. So I'd love to hear you explain that and how you thought about that in a 7-day record.
Yeah,
or a 5-day record, I mean.
Well, the context of this was I got excited to get back on the route 8 years later, and that was last summer. And I went in with I wouldn't say off the couch, but not great specific training. My summer leading in, I went and did a soft rock, and then I came back here. I did the Vermont 100K, and then I did another 50K in the whites, and then I jumped on the trail. And I felt fit enough to give it a shot, and I was also pushing it into later in August with the hopes of some cooler temps, which I got. But what I didn't foresee was my tendons giving out, and by nature of who knows exactly the cause, whether it's just age or if it was not having the specific training, a combination of both. Not having calf sleeves on. I don't know. There's things that I'm always wondering what make a difference. And so this year when I was on the trail, I was constantly stressing out about tendons and joints. And I remember last summer having some very sharp knee pain and just show-stopping injuries. And those are what can just sneak up in a day. They can sneak up very fast, and they can just end your effort, as what happened to me, as what happened to John Kelly. And you see a lot of people on these multi-day efforts where, you ride these waves of feeling great, but you really have to have some restraint in terms of how far you push yourself. So when I was out there and I could feel things start to feel a little achy here, a little twinge of pain there, and some of the tendon stuff, that's where I felt like I was really feathering it. And I was willing to sleep a little, like lay down a little more, rest a little more, dial it back. I had some A goals and B goals each day, each night where I wanted to end up. And so I never pushed it past what I needed to do. And that was me more or less feeling it out and feathering it. If I had to break a stouter record, I would have had to take those risks, and I would have had to potentially blow up. But I don't know. I mean, that's the beauty of this, and that's the fun, and that's what keeps it interesting, is what are we capable of?
Yeah. Well, I think that's what we've seen with, races and elites training, and then also in the FKT world, is as these things get more stout and competitive, there's so much more risk involved in breaking these records or course records or FKTs as well. Even with Western states, like 2/3 or half the elite field couldn't even make it to the start line because that competitive pressure. And I think with even Tara's time is quite stout too, and John Kelly aiming for sub 40, like it's just so much risk. The risk is so much elevated compared to when I got the long trail FKT in 5.5 days or something. Now it's like way faster than that.
I mean, John Kelly's a great example because he said it himself that he just wanted to get the most out of himself. And if that meant smashing the record or just barely breaking the record, that was his approach. And I'm guessing that's what he did. I mean, he started off on the trail so aggressive. I think the Appalachian Trail is so much bigger. I felt like I was doing 5 days of the Appalachian Trail. you know, the 5 of the hardest days, maybe. That's sort of, I'm like, this is probably what John felt like. You know, he's probably buried at this point, and that's sort of how I felt a little bit. But I saw the light at the end of the tunnel, and I could take a little more risks because I knew I was going to be off trail. So it wasn't, what I was doing for sure wasn't sustainable for much longer. But if you want the record, sometimes you just have to just beat the record. You don't have to smash it. And that's where you can be smart and not take the risk. But if you want to get the most out of yourself, that's a huge risk too. So I don't know. There's 2 approaches to that, whether you want to play it safe as you can or try to set yourself up for something like huge.
Yeah. And what's your mindset out there? Because Joffrey was on the route and ahead of you when you'd started. He was still going, correct? Are you?
No, he had.
Okay.
I did my last training day, one of my last bigger days in the whites. I did 32 miles on a really hot day, and it was supposed to be his last day, more or less.
Oh, okay.
And so I was watching him on the tracker, and he passed through this place called Carter Notch on the AT right as like 20 minutes before I got there. And I was sweating from the car. You know, it was a very humid day, and the temps down on the road were in the 90s, and just brutal. But I had watching his route was really fun because he was making great time, and you're always wondering what is this person really experiencing on the trail, because when you're dot watching it can look like someone's crushing it. But in reality, they're suffering, or they're having a horrible time, or they're dealing with something. And you just don't know if you don't have any insight into what they're experiencing. So his write-up after the fact, it was great. He wrote a bunch on Strava, and it was just neat to hear his experience, because when you distill all this multi-day stuff down, we all leave with these crazy experiences that stick with us for the rest of our lives.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think so much, and it's almost a lost art now, but years and years worth of trip reports are what a lot of these routes and current records are built upon, whether the people going after them now know it or not. Like, I was reading the trip report from like 2008 or something on the long trail before I was going after it, like back in the heyday of trip reports. Now it's like YouTube or TikTok or something.
Yeah. And I was reading an article, Dan at Northeast Explorer, he wrote a piece on just a quick little interview on my effort, and on the bottom it said suggested reading, and it was Joe McConaughey's self-supported effort, and it just brings up things that you forget that happened, like when he went off the Kinsman's or something 2,000 feet down the wrong direction and got off route and had this huge hiccup, and you're like, oh man, forgot about that.
Yeah, I know. He like crushing, and then there's like a couple 20-mile days during his AT record too, where it's just like, oh yeah, like really bad days can happen out here.
And that brings up the point that you're gonna have things, you're gonna have difficulties no matter what. They might be bigger in some cases than others. Like Joffrey's whole midsole ripped off his shoe, and there's nothing you can do about that. That's just bad luck.
Probably just don't do it in cowboy boots next time, maybe.
Yeah. Bring extra duct tape and shoe goo and whatever. Now you have these things happen to you that are major setbacks, whether it's physically or mentally, and how do you overcome that and deal with it? And I mean, the first year I did it, I didn't know anything about what I would want nutritionally. I didn't know anything about my sleep setup. I just went for it. And I learned a lot, and I didn't sleep well, and so I was tired for the entire time. I was taking lots of dirt naps, and it was bad. And this time I fell really hard on my tailbone, and I have a little bit of a back compression injury from skiing way back in high school, and it flares up every now and then. But this really set it off right out of the gate, and so I dealt with that. Was a little stressful, and then I bent a trekking pole which inevitably happens. I slipped and put all my weight on it and it bowed out. That was stressful. And then, yeah, I guess the tendon stuff was stressful the entire time, but all in all, I got pretty lucky with, I had a lot of things go in my favor, and you pick a weather window and there's so much spatial variation throughout the White Mountains that you just you can't be 100% what you're going to get. And if it rained at night, that would be pretty devastating, because that would put you back in a pretty big sleep deficit. Wouldn't be very efficient. And I was fortunate to not have any rain or major injuries. I think those are the two things or gear failures. So there's a few things that I look at that were all potential showstoppers, and I was able to navigate those potential hazards just fine.
Yeah. When you think about like this 5 to 7 day max effort type of thing, how do you think about sleep, like at the end of each day and something like this?
I wish I could just sleep when I'm tired. Yeah. But in reality, it didn't play out like that for me. I was prepared to go further at the end of each day, but my body just wasn't having it.
Okay.
I would get to the end point, and maybe it's just a mental thing. Maybe it's because I had it written down as a potential option. But the way the route's broken up is that at a certain point, like, it's dark, even in midsummer, it's going to be dark out. And how inefficient is it going to be to keep pushing, combined with managing risk of overdoing it, combined with the fatigue of being on that terrain for so long. So that was what really bothered me. Was I was beat up, like, feeling and not wanting to go further. It wasn't
physically, not mentally, basically.
Yeah, well, it was physically in a superficial sense. I could still climb, I could still move, but I just felt my feet were really sore, and I felt really beat up. And I thought if I pushed it, it was just gonna be unnecessary risk.
Yeah.
I think in hindsight, I could have pushed one mountain more per day to set me up better for the last day, perhaps. But who knows what would have happened.
Yeah. And with a route like this, I imagine you must have, like, if you pass a spot to sleep, you must have to go for a certain amount extra before there's even an opportunity to have much of a spot to lay down.
Yeah, sometimes. So to get that last peak out of day one would have been Owl's Head, which is you drop your pack. So you're not going to just stop and have a nice sleep on the summit with no pack.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. So it's just how some of it breaks down. The night 2, I came off a really, really technical descent off Osceolas, off a big day, and I could have gone and done Tecumseh, which isn't that big of a deal. And then so you sort of rationalize that with yourself, because this non-technical peak I can just do in the morning on fresh legs, recovered legs, and move faster and not take that risk. So that's how each day I knew. And then day 3, I started to feel a little tendon stress on the top of my toes, top of my feet, and I was getting a little bit of blistering from having wet feet through a section. So I knew I couldn't. There wasn't even an option to knock out the next peak there. So I didn't have much control almost over these decisions. It was just listening to my body at the time and knowing that I'm signed up for the whole thing, and I need to finish. And I'm not necessarily going to be able to finish in the way I want to do it if I trash myself so early.
Yeah, that must come from experience, though, of, like, if you were 20, you might think like, oh, I can just keep pushing and I'll push the whole way.
Yeah, I mean, experience and fear. Yeah, it's a little scary to see what's on the other side sometimes. And again, I knew I didn't necessarily have to, but the last day, I had a huge day, but it was like, that's your last day. You're getting off trail. So, you got to send it. And it all worked out, on paper. It was exactly what I planned. I wanted to go under 5 days. I didn't know how far I could go under 5 days. And I padded it for sure a little bit, and I should have done a little more recon on the trail at the end. So mentally, I would have been more prepared for what laid ahead into that night. But yeah, I can't be upset with that effort given all the years that have passed and how important that route is to me and the mountains here. And it's like I've formed my life around the White Mountains, and it's so special and rewarding when you can have this goal and set out for it and have it all work out. And then, yeah, again, back to our original conversation, that people were excited about it, and it's neat to see it get a little bit of a resurgence.
Yeah. What was the why to have that fire relit, to start thinking about it and going after it last year? Because you'd already had the record. Other people had broken it. It got faster. What made you want to do it all again?
It's a bit of competitiveness, I think. I think there's competitiveness with myself was like number one, that I knew I could do better. I remember I gave a few talks on it afterwards too, and people would ask the question of, what do you think you could do it in? And I said, I could probably take a day off. And they're like, would you go back? And I said, probably not. Probably then I was definitely not going to want to go back and do something so hard. But over time, we all change, and I think I have become a better endurance athlete over time and smarter. And other people watching Will Peterson have so much success in general was definitely an inspiration. Hearing chatter of other people getting on the route potentially was a little bit of competitive inspiration. And ultimately it was like, yeah, can I take a day off my original time if you really focus on this and apply everything you've learned from that first time, and then being more knowledgeable about the trails. I mean, having all that experience on the trail means so much, and sometimes you take that for granted, that knowing exactly where you're going can make it more familiar. It can make the route go by faster. Mentally, you're prepared as you move through it. That nothing's a big deal because you've done it before, and you've done those sections many times, and you have this you sort of have this outlook on it that gives you confidence.
Yeah. Is this one of those routes that you have to be a local to be competitive because of the scouting and the miles and the everything required?
I think there's freaks out there that are just strong and could probably do great on it. But I think there's just enough. It's just enough of a commitment that it scares a lot of people off it, or they just can't commit to it. And it's a committing route. So you've got to set aside a bunch of time for a window to get on it, and the specific training. You know, if you look at people who have had success in the White Mountains, it's people that have really scouted and rehearsed the routes, like the the presidentials for sure. The PEMI, not so much. I mean, all the records on the PEMI it's not as competitive, I'd say. It doesn't get as many swings on it, but it's Jack Hensel and Jordan Fields definitely like on-sited it more or less, or they were on a scouting effort and turned into a race effort. But the Hut Traverse is another one that you definitely want familiarity. You want to know exactly how to minimize carrying water and what you need, what terrain you're going to have where you can make up time on the splits and stuff. So that's definitely a race effort. But yeah, the terrain rules all. It's going to dictate everything. And if you're not comfortable in it, then you're not going to probably finish or do well.
Especially on the descents. And I sort of think this is why the White Mountains, I mean, incredibly hard, but lesser. Like, people just don't think about some of the routes there because it's almost like untouchable by the people who don't obsess and live there, it feels like.
It's true. In Colorado, those records are so fast on some of that terrain, and it's the same. It's like a lot of us probably don't want anything to do with that because it's just too fast. And then here it's so choppy that it's a different skill set in general for most people. I would say there are some of the talent that have set records are freakishly fast on this stuff and can be fast on other routes. But I think it goes to the big picture of the East Coast in general in terms of talent and athletics. Aside from Nordic skiing, most skiers and trail runners, they move out west because you have better training conditions, perhaps better terrain that you're going to see at competitions, and so it's not that the talent pool here just isn't. It's never going to be as deep as you're going to find perhaps in other places too. But there's certainly talented people that can navigate this terrain very fast, and often when other pro runners come here, they get humbled real quick.
A quick break to talk about what I am wearing during this FKT, and spoiler alert, it's all Janji. So I'm wearing the men's Trekker snappy shirt, the reverse paisley color. Why? Because it's short sleeve and it's quick drying, and it's just really easy to open up and get a little bit more ventilation when humidity is going to be high out there on the AT. I'm also wearing the men's AFO middle short ultra. I wear a size medium. They're just great because they have pockets, and the world just needs more pockets. I can keep a bunch of snacks in my pockets, and I have hip belt pockets and side pockets and front pockets. So I just need food everywhere because I'm going to be eating between 8,000 and 10,000 calories a day. So I love the pockets on the men's AFO middle short ultra from Janji. And then the AFO hyperlight visor. Do visors look dumb? I don't know, but I'm in my 30s now, so it doesn't really matter. And they're just cool. I can put a bandana or a towel to cover my neck in the sun, or if I stick that bandana or towel in the water, it's just really good and cooling. So that is what I'm wearing. Shop at janji.com. Use code FREEOUTSIDE for a discount and tell them I sent you. Back to the episode. Yeah, well, I think it's something interesting, and you must have people with no social media, no Strava, but are some of the most talented people that you've ever met, just sitting in the shop sometimes and just around the White Mountains. And it's those type of people who just love the technicality, and it's like that pure love of what the White Mountains are that I think almost separated of you can be just someone can blow by you out on the trails and you're like, no idea who that is and I'll never know, but they're just pretty incredible. And it's like they're all kind of hidden in pockets throughout the Northeast.
Yeah, every region has their person that's their dark horse. For us, I would say Tristan Williams has always been one. He's just always fast. He doesn't time himself at all, but he'll show up and he'll do like the U.S. mountain champs. He'd always be top 15. And but when he's not on Strava, never carries a phone. He has like a Casio watch. And yeah, someone else would be currently Jake Aceto is just someone that's really fast. He's run some very fast times on the Pemi Loop and will go out, but often just won't post or just, I don't know. I equate it to someone that was very fast, say in college. Mm-hmm. And then they were a fast distance runner in college, and then they're not going to jump in your local 5K and run because they're not going to PR. They're not like, they've already done that. They've already lived that part of their life, perhaps. And so I think you get some of that with trail runners that just don't care either because there's like, they like it or they're not competitive in that sense. Or maybe they're overly competitive, or maybe they're just over it. So it's hard to figure out, but we have a few of those guys and girls here.
Yeah, I feel like there's the biggest pocket of those people is in the Northeast. Like even the backcountry skiing culture is like, there's cool stuff, but it's not a 4,000 foot couloir like you could get out west.
No, you're absolutely right. But there's a lot of what I was doing in 2016 was trying to amplify how good we have it here, mm-hmm. Especially to brands and trying to just get our story out more. And I did some of that, and it was fun. And that chip on your shoulder mentality resulted in what I have here now, which is just a kick-ass community, mm-hmm. because it was like a lot of like-minded people come to these events and come on these routes, and you just start meeting people, and next thing you know, it's like, how do we get together more and stop being so fragmented? And So the trail scene here is like, it's really tight. Everyone sort of knows everyone. And then we're seeing it through all the event explosion, whether it's an informal event or formal event. It just keeps growing.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything is like, it's almost spread out. Like they're coming from multiple different towns too to one spot. It's not just like, oh, we're in Boulder. It's like we've driven from Conway or Jackson or Berlin or just from all over to one spot.
Yeah. I mean, I think these sports are really small. Mm-hmm. The communities are really small. I've traveled all over the U.S. and I run into people that know of the shop or maybe they have a sticker that says ski the whites or run the whites or something. And it's crazy. I think it's just a reminder that we're in this six degrees of separation zone where we're all like getting more and more tied in. And there's a chance that we probably have know someone in common, and especially in backcountry skiing, because it's such a cliquey sport where with reason, right? Because you want to ski with people you trust that can save your ass. You don't want
to go with someone who doesn't know anything.
Yeah. And then you also have to get along with them personality wise. Mm-hmm. And so it makes things a little exclusive at times, but there's a time and place for the social aspect too, where everyone should be involved. And by having those instances, and in the ski world, we have glade days and trail days and events, social events, film fest, stuff like that. And so you'll meet people that way. And then next time you're in the backcountry or on the trail, you might run into someone and it sparks up a conversation, and it's nice. You can let your guard down and not be so stressed about first tracks or, I don't know. It's really pleasant. I don't know. It's one of those things I didn't realize in my lifetime was going to change so much, because from the past 10 years since I've moved back, I'm from the Mount Washington Valley, and I moved back here in 2014 after being away for 11 years or so. And I didn't know how things were going to shake out, but in this little bit of self-reflection, it's crazy to see the growth of the sports, both backcountry and trail running.
Yeah. Yeah. So you guys do call it first tracks, not just like first ice chunks?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no one really cares about first ice chunks, but on our powder days, which are even more elusive, it's, And you also care about the wilderness experience too, because a lot of people backcountry ski to get away from people, to get away from the resort. So it's nice to not have people on top of you, crowding you. So, yeah.
So I think a lot of people don't understand the whites too. So how would you describe what it's like to run per se in the whites?
Yeah, it's a lot of hiking. It's choppy. I mean, it's hard to find a rhythm. Mm-hmm. I'd say climbing especially, generally very steep, not many switchbacks, mix of terrain. You're going to find very few sections that are smooth and runnable. There's some areas that, you have a nice stretch where you can sort of get in a rhythm, but for the most part, you're so locked in to where you're placing your feet, you just can't relax. And that's how I describe it, is when you're doing these efforts, you can't zone out for a second, or else you're going to hook a toe or you're going to fall off trail. And I've done plenty of that.
And you're going to fall most days anyways.
Yeah, you're going to fall most days anyways. I mean, you look at my knees or my hands any given day, and they're pretty scratched up or bruised. But what I love about the White Mountains is that you can get above tree line, and it's stunning. It's simply like as beautiful in my eyes as anywhere in the world. When I'm up there, there's this awe and impressiveness about being above tree line, about the weather that we experience, about what you can do on foot traveling throughout the mountain ranges. And I mean, we're lucky. Everyone sort of in New England has their home mountains, and I love, that there's Baxter State Park and this true wilderness experience up there. I love that there's the Adirondacks that are so wild and like it's a bunch of herd paths in my mind. Mm-hmm. And then and Vermont has like the best some of the best trails out there.
I thought you were gonna say mud, but yeah, that too.
No, well, it's got good loam for mountain biking, but
Yeah.
I haven't even set foot on the long trail yet, which is a different discussion. But I just love that everyone has their backyard to play in,
Hmm.
and it's all gonna resonate with them in a way that, like, yeah, it's your home, and that's where
Totally.
you live, and that's where you recreate. And I make a point to do a trip every year just to go travel somewhere, and I come back with a fresh perspective. I'm a little jaded sometimes how good it can be elsewhere, whether it's trail running or skiing, but I absolutely love it here. And it's like I've been here for 10 years and I'm not bored, at all. Like
Yeah.
every day I can get out, I can go to a new trail or new peak or
Or
be
just do
working on
Mount
something.
Washington every single day.
Yeah, yeah, I can
So
do that.
what does the East Coast, or especially the White Mountain running community, think of everyone out west? Are they like, those are the smoothest trails, everyone's soft? Like, what are the thoughts crossing the country here?
Uh, I would I think there is some jealousy, to be honest. There are aspects of having really nice runnable trail that we miss. I love the trails out west.
Hmm.
I've played around a bit, and it's a little frustrating. And same with skiing, the snowpack levels. I mean, we get frustrated with Vermont when Vermont has
Hmm.
like the winter they had this year. But I don't know. It's like you make time, you go there, you visit it, you get familiar with some of the premier routes, and then you come home and you go back to work in a way. And it's not that I get jealous. It's almost like visiting a city where you get your fix and then you move, then you're back.
Yeah.
You're back where you're really comfortable. And part of that's just like life and living and just your day to day routine. But I don't know. I think that there's so many. We live in a time where there's so many great mountain towns for running that you could live in right now and have infinite trail time. It feels like.
Especially if you have a trust fund, then you can choose anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
So I wanted to shift gears into the Appalachian Trail, and when you've paced people through it, does it feel, is there like almost a pressure or an enjoyment or excitement to show these people? I think very few of them are from the Northeast, like this section of trail that is quite coveted and quite difficult. Is that kind of a fun experience to be like, you've made it 1,800 miles, but check this out?
Yeah, I spent. I did a little trail magic stint where I was gonna section hike the Whites 100. I didn't make it very far. I made it 40 miles or so. But I talked to all these thru hikers and just I
Hmm.
wanted to hear what they thought and get their impression on the White Mountains. And out of the whole trail so far, I think most were northbound, some southbounders, but they just loved it. And it's
Hmm.
so refreshing to hear the secondhand stoke. It's very energizing on how people see your mountains because it's just reassuring sometimes. You're like, okay, you get it. You see what I'm seeing.
Hmm.
And with people doing these speed records, one part you want people to be humbled in some sense of like, yeah, they are difficult.
Yeah.
What we're doing here is not easy, but you also want them to be able to enjoy it. And you
Hmm.
want them to get a little glimpse into your day to day mountains where you recreate. So when Scott Jurek came through, I mean, he was pretty toast. So it wasn't that fun. And it was a little stressful to me because I didn't know the trails then as well as I do now. And it's just, that's how it is.
Yeah.
And my perspective has changed. But he was in rough shape and we should have been a little more prepared to sleep wherever, on trail. But we were so dead set on getting to a hut or getting to a road crossing that it's obviously the wheels fell off a bit, but he like kept his shit together somehow and was able to still get it done. It goes back to you just have to be like a second faster than
Yeah.
the standing record to make it a success. And so that was really he was the first person that I was around for. Like I followed Joey Camps and String Bean from afar. I don't know. I was probably still living in California at the time. And then when so then what's the order? Was Carl Meltzer next?
So it would have been Jurek and Meltzer, and then it was String Bean and Camps, and then
No, but like moving more recently. So
yeah,
after Scott Jurek.
yeah, he would have been the furthest, the longest ago, I guess would be how to put it, because I think he was 2015, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So and then it would have been, let's see, I'll just pull this up here. We have
Good.
Jurek in 15, and then we have this is really good podcasting. Then we have Meltzer in 2016,
Yep.
and then we have Joey and Joe in 17, and then we move into Sabe in 18, and then Jurek had an attempt
Yeah.
after that.
All
I
right.
think.
So I wasn't involved at all when Carl Meltzer went through. He had a really tight thing going on. He had his
Yeah.
documentary, Red Bull, all that stuff.
You
So
didn't have the Red Bull wings. So you weren't
Yeah,
invited.
I wasn't involved then, but I saw when Carl Sabe came through, I was expecting more Scott Jurek vibes in the sense that he was going to be pretty tired, but he was incredibly fit and fast. And his mental state was just like happy and carefree. It was kind of insane to watch him. He trapezed across the Franconia Ridge like no issue, carrying a big yellow backpack loaded up to get him all the way across that 26-mile stretch, unsupported, to the next road crossing, which it's wild. It's wild that, he was so strong, but he just did what he had to do to break the record again. He was able to sleep, I don't know, probably 8 hours a day. He was moving so fast, and he had his routine down where he didn't really stop during the day. So that was eye-opening watching him, and I think he loved it. I mean, he had some bad weather on Washington, but I think he had a great experience. I bet if he recollected his time across the whites, and so that was just the complete opposite end of the spectrum of Scott Jurek. Then I saw Christian Morgan a few years ago when he was going northbound, and he was moving well too. Like he wasn't moving as fast as Carl was, but it was, he had done, I don't know how many attempts he had done before that, but I was just sort of like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if you got this. I don't know if I want to, like, how much help do you need from me? Is this for real? But because it is a little bit like The Boy Who Cried Wolf. You give this thing so many shots, but I watched him, if it was last year or something, but in the 2 years ago and last year, he's strong and he's driven, and he knows this trail so well now, and he's about to hop on August 1st.
Yeah, you might say obsessed.
Obsessed. Well, I think it's fascinating to make it part of your identity in your life, and to have this goal that means so much to you that you're willing to sacrifice so much for it. Trust me, when I was out there on the Direttissima, I was just thinking about how hard it was out there, and then this is what every AT speed record person must feel like for like 40 days plus.
Yeah, for 35 more days.
Yeah, I'm like, this is crazy. So I have a ton of respect for anyone that wants to put themselves out there. So then when Tara came through, I didn't go out, but I sent some of my coworkers out to help her on the Carter range.
Okay.
And so that was cool that they could get that experience. And that's sort of what it's become now. It's like, no, I want a lot of other people to get this experience, because it is infectious and can really get you thinking, get the gears turning about what you're doing as far as your challenging endurance efforts.
Do they get paid, your employees, when you send them out there?
Sometimes, no. I don't know. I don't remember. Some are salaried, some are hourly. Yeah, it doesn't. But no, I want them to have this experience. It's very powerful.
Yeah. So what is your advice for going southbound and moving through the whites, knowing that Southern Maine precedes them?
Yeah, I mean, clearly, well, if they're going southbound, I am in the camp of that's the fastest way, because if you have a tough time, as we saw with Tara, where she wasn't remarkably fast getting through the hard chunk, but she just got through it, and she was able to course correct. And you can't do that the other direction. And I don't know historically the temperatures and everything too. I think that's really important as well,
Yeah.
and how much heat plays a factor. And I guess if you have a ton of support and you can have access to a lot of ice, perhaps that can certainly help. But it's pretty tough.
What is the trick for cooling? Is it just get in every stream, basically
Yeah,
stay
yeah,
wet?
but then how do you take care of taking care of your feet, making sure your feet are good for not overdoing it? Because
So you can't,
I think there's this fine line with foot care where you can have your feet wet for a certain amount of time with no issues. And I don't know what time limit that is, but I've had wet feet for 16 or 17 hours with no issues. They dry out overnight and you just go again and you don't get blisters. But there's some instances, whether it's the terrain or the time on feet or the effort you're putting in, where I feel like blisters can sneak up on you and it feels too late. So, but anyway, the point being, it's all about managing risk again. And if you're going to leave the hardest part of the trail to the end, that in my mind just seems very risky. So starting from Katahdin, which, you could argue that just climbing up Katahdin is burning a little extra gas to get up there to start, but at least you have a lot of the uncertainty taken care of in the start. Whereas when you start getting through Vermont and everything, things chill out to a certain degree. Like you're not going to have as many showstopper potentials, I think. It's just, can your body handle those long days?
Totally. Yeah. Then it's a kind of a war of attrition at that point. But what is the secret for moving quickly on the descents in the whites? Because, I mean, even a 9-minute mile is like impossible.
Yeah. I don't think you have to, though. I think if you look at your effort, your descents should be like 3 miles an hour to 4 miles an hour max. I don't think they have to be that fast, or they can be that fast. I don't think that's sustainable. But I think if you're just power hiking up and then you're able to just be efficient through the whole thing and not, I think the problem is if you come into these regions totally gassed, you're going to bury yourself.
Totally. Yeah.
And how do you come in not trashed and minimize the risk? I think you need sleep, recovery, and to maybe temper some of your expectations so that when you do hit those low mileage days, it's not disruptive to your overall outlook on what you're doing. I think that it can mentally break people if their mileage goes down substantially and they're like, I can't fix this. How am I going to make up this time? And then they freak out and then they overdo it on the back end trying to make up for that low mileage.
It's such a fun thing because it's so weighted toward either near the beginning or near the end, but not close enough that it's the final push on the AT. That I just think it's like a fun section because you have to be very smart with it, no matter how you're attempting the Appalachian Trail too.
How do you look at the AT now after just doing some recon versus your through hike when you
Honestly,
did the Triple Crown?
I think the whites were easier in the winter when I did it on that through hike, in some senses of like footing or even depending on micro spikes on the descents, because they'd hold the ice better than my feet would hold some of the slick rocks.
Oh, no, it's true. And winter hiking can be like completely non-technical.
Yeah. And then I think it really just confirmed what I was already thinking of. I'm preparing to go into this knowing I'm going to be behind at Glencliff. Basically, it's like I have the most conservative schedule through the first 400 miles of like, it's okay that I'm going to be behind. And I just have to really accept that, because then everything changes. I mean, not super dramatically, but just everything becomes a lot more forgiving after basically the White Mountain 100, which if people don't know is like the hardest 100 miles of the AT.
And I think, I love this self-supported effort idea of your own puzzle in terms of logistics and gear and effort. And those days are still massive days. Like, that's not lost on me at all, but I think it's really intriguing thinking about resupply and how to carry the least amount of stuff to move the most efficiently.
Totally. And while I was out there, I wanted to mail stuff to a couple resupplies to make sure that it worked, to talk to the people there. It's just like there's so many logistical things that you can't solve them all, but having some confidence in a number of them, just like what's going to work out there.
And maybe you've talked about, but I don't know, what's the protocol and sort of the rules as far as where you can mail stuff and what's acceptable? Because you can't have people coming out that you mailed it to a hostel and have them just deliver it to you at the trailhead.
No, I have to go to the hostel. So the Glencliff Happy Hiker Hostel or something. I have to turn left and hike into there, grab it, and hike back out. And like Pinkham Notch Visitor Center, mailing one there.
Have they changed? Has it changed? Are there more hostels or less hostels on the route? Do you know?
That's a good question. I'm sure there's not less because everyone loves getting outdoor. And last time I did it was 2016, and that's before the outdoor boom. And nothing was open then. It's just going to be a totally different experience this time around than that time where I swam across the Kennebec River. I just like had the craziest experience doing everything in the winter. Luckily, Mount Washington was forgiving weather. I was able to summit that baby.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the weather's nicer many winter days than it is in the summer. So
yeah, it'll be interesting. But I think that's really the draw, and it seems like what motivates you too is the puzzle of these things. And just I think we have, just hearing you talk on a couple podcasts, like the similar mindset of, I don't really want to solve every problem ahead of time on a spreadsheet. I am very intuitive, but I have to get to this certain threshold of confidence or knowing that this strategy is worth pursuing 100%. And then that's when I have the green light to dive in and intuitively problem solve from there. Is that kind of how you think of these two?
I need some confidence going in, but
Totally.
I wouldn't I don't know that I'd really want to do something that it was 100% given. I don't know that would be as fun.
No, definitely not.
And sometimes I love that idea of everything is the most fun when there's this, maybe you don't realize it at the time, but there's a huge potential for failure. And I think that was very true for starting my business, where I really enjoyed those early years when who knew if it was going to work out, but it just felt like the right thing to do. And same with these efforts where you something is pulling you to go do it. And of course you're going to train to do it. You're going to lay it all out, all the logistics, and hopefully and go into it thinking you're going to do it. But the reality is there's so many other things that might be outside your control. Think of every step you have to take and how the trail wants to kill you. And in hindsight, it's pretty special when you're able to accomplish some of these things. So yeah,
or even attempt them, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I look at it with blinders where I'm focused, and yeah, I think mentally I'm in it. I'm sort of in Bill Tidd, like I'm not stopping regardless. I'm committed to this. But when you look back after the fact, you realize how lucky you were in some instances that things went your way. Or yeah,
I just need to take 5 million perfect steps. No big deal.
That's it.
Yeah. I wanted to just briefly hit on one more topic. So what you've done in the greater White Mountain area is first start a business and run it successfully. But I think what's the coolest thing is it feels like you've really valued community and opportunity and helping connect people and give opportunity to get out there and educate, even above the value of, making money and more business. How have you kind of thought of those, and how are they interwoven? Because it seems like your whole vibe is, it doesn't matter if every event's making me money, but the value is putting on these events for people.
Yeah, exactly. I everything I've done with this is just a little bit selfish, a little bit for me and what I want to exist, but also to bring in people to show what I find interesting, if that makes sense. So with skiing, realizing that we have this really fun mountain range that we can go backcountry ski. And I don't feel that it was being highlighted as well as it could have been. And so that's what I spent a lot of 2015 onward doing, sharing through just videos and photos. It wasn't trying to be, look at me. It was trying to be like, look at these mountains and showing what you can do here and trying to get other people excited about that. And same with the running events. We slowly just added events on the calendar as ideas came up. You know, I'd never done a backyard ultra, so why not make one?
Yeah.
And so we made one on my parents' property, and it's just total what you'd think of a backyard ultra, and it's a lot of fun, a lot more fun than I realized it ever would be. And then I wanted to do night skiing, like Vermont had a Citizen Series, night touring series. Yeah. And so I copied what they did. They did theirs on a Tuesday night. I did mine on Fridays, and that brought a lot of people into backcountry skiing that way. Then I did a couple other interesting events, like a nighttime trail race, a Friday night vertical series, and I don't know, a couple others. So we're doing a White Mountain 100 fat ass style to kind of bypass the Forest Service regulations, where it's,
let's make the hardest 100-miler fat ass style.
Yeah,
Good luck,
we're gonna
everybody.
make it a big group hike. Anyway, so it's just a lot of, if you look at it, it's all events and all things that I want to be doing anyway. And then why not bring in other people? And then when I look back on it, it's like, oh yeah, I mean, the community is the fun part. Retail is whatever. It's fun to have nice gear and sell all the stuff that I like to use, but it's more fun to meet people in the process, and events are the best way. You're gonna attract a bunch of like-minded people. You're gonna have experts. You're gonna have novices, and it's both ends of the spectrum are really, it's really rewarding to have all those people come to your events.
Is it scary? I'm always worried it's going to be like when you have a birthday party and no one shows up. Have you had anything like that?
There's a little bit where there's a threshold that I hope to pass for every event, because if no one's showing up, why are you putting in all this effort to host it? But luckily that's not a problem.
Okay.
And we're not huge by any means. We're not there to have that, hundreds of people, but it's like, I like the vibe of between, around 100 people is perfect. It's good. It's enough people. It's plenty of people to manage. I think when you get more than 150, 200 people, it changes the whole vibe of the event to some degree. It becomes way less intimate. So I think it's a lot easier to approach people and to have some nice small talk and connect with people that way.
Has there been an event that you put on that was like dramatic failure or didn't work?
No, you know what? Some of the early events that I did, we'd only get 20 people, but I didn't know any better. And I was just psyched that people showed up in the first place.
Totally. 20 is better than 0.
And given how weather can influence whether someone shows up or, if someone shows up or not, it could be negative in the wintertime. It could be negative 20 or it could be raining. And we dealt with that and people still showed up. But, yeah, there's been no epic failures. A lot of these are just guinea pig events to begin with. So whoever shows up, I'm thankful. And then you learn and you see the next year, hopefully people had a good time and they're going to invite their friends and come back. And that's sort of how the race director lifestyle is. And there's certainly things you can do to help promote your event and do better at marketing. I mean, that's obviously number one, is making sure people even know that your event exists, especially in this really crowded market. But again, I have a customer base and a participant list now that it's easy to blast out and at least let people know. But I think that's all. The event numbers are fine. Like I'm cool with them being low key and chill. I don't need them to be hard to manage.
Yeah, totally. All right. Close us out on what is your advice, or what would you say to the many people out there who have something they want to do, but it's that fear of failure or fear of going for it that stops them from taking a chance? Because it seems like you've overcome that pretty well.
Oh man, it's all about baby steps. I mean, it's as simple as getting from junction to junction, from trailhead to summit. You got to really break things down. I think when I was on the Direttissima, I really visualized the finish a lot for whatever reason. And then I just have to zoom back to reality and really focus at what I was doing that moment. But you got to start somewhere. I mean, I love it that when someone else is doing something big, like when you're on the Appalachian Trail, it's going to get me out of bed because I'm going to be like, oh, Jeff's out there just working his ass off. And I'm like, the least I can do is get out for like a short run. And I think that's sort of what I love. I want to share sometimes with what I'm doing. It's like, hey, hopefully you can look at this as more of something to motivate you than to turn you off from it, because we all have something. We all should have something that excites us and challenges us. And that's where you really learn about yourself, and it's going to help every endeavor you do moving forward, is doing some of this hard stuff. I mean, it's a little cliche, but it matters a lot. And I think we need to get out of our comfort zone. It doesn't have to be all the time, but every now and then, just to kind of it's a bit of a wake up call, and it totally helps us prioritize our lives.
And I think the biggest thing is, people, both of us, I'm sure included, have failed at so many things. It's not the end of anything to fail. It's just like a part of the process.
Yeah. I used to get frustrated with failure, whether it's myself or other people, but it's like, you're right. At least you're getting out there and these people are going to learn. No one loves to fail. It's not fun, but it happens. No. You should be able to accept it, and it happens. And, again, your big goal doesn't have to be anything that I've done or you've done. It's just, you need to figure that out for yourself. It's all relative. And that's what I tell people when I'm out there. And if someone's just doing a day hike versus if, one mountain, and I'm doing a few mountains, it's like, there's always someone crazier doing something bigger. It doesn't matter. You go to a 5K, there's always someone that can run it faster. It doesn't matter. It's like, the point is, you're there, you're showing up, and you're doing it. So that's what I try to get out. That's the message.
And we're at the best time in history to fail. The world moves on so quickly. Your failure is a blip on the radar.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because even successes, it's like, yeah, I boxed that up, filed that away. That's gone. It's like, all right, look forward. What can we work on now?
Yeah. The Direttissima got like a week of coverage, and that was more than expected.
Yeah. So it's cool. And I like that. I like that it dies off and someone else is going to do something big, and the spotlight's on them, and it's well deserved. There's a woman on the Direttissima right now.
Oh, who is it?
Her name's Charlotte.
Cool.
And so she is on Tecumseh.
Okay.
Is that right? Cool.
Well, thanks for joining us, and check out Run the Whites, Ski the Whites, all the things when you're in the area. Yeah,
we try to be accommodating to everyone, so it's fun. It's like a glorified living room in our shop, and
you won't sell the most expensive stuff just for now.
No, I love it. I love when people swing by. It's what makes it fun. So the day-to-day business stuff, not everyone has their day job. You have to be at a certain place at a certain time, and that's kind of can suck the fun out of things. But again, we're lucky to live where we live, and always have like another goal on deck. So yeah.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Yeah, appreciate it, Jeff.
That was Andrew Drummond. During the Appalachian Trail Record, I'm trying to raise money through the Trevor Project to support those that need a lot of our support. I mean, it's hard when you're coming of age and you're different, and look at me, I'm very different. So that's why I wanted to go with this cause. I'm trying to raise $10 per every mile, so please consider donating. And yeah, let's make a difference. So the link is down below. It'll be all over a number of things that I'm posting. And thanks for being here. Consider supporting all of these endeavors and the podcast indefinitely by donating all your life savings over at patreon.com/freeoutside. Or not. Or just listen to this content for free and take it like a free sample at Costco. All right. Thank you to our sponsors, John G., Crouch Your Own Gear, CS Coffee, Mount to Coast, all the things that are keeping me moving out there. I'm Jeff Garmeyer, and I tell you to stay elite, my friends.